please welcome Gray Ewell.
All right. Thank you, Rick. Thank you very much. So, Emerging Technology Symposium. No wonder you call it ETS. Actually, is a great opportunity for designers and people on my team because it allows for emerging design. And that's what I want to talk about today, is the impact that design has on conservation and the impact that conservation has on design and the design process. We talked about it before on the panel. A number of Craig and Doug talked about it. The products have to perform. If the consumer finds the performance unacceptable, it doesn't matter how good looking the product is. And that's always been true. But we're into an interesting new era where actually how it looks also has an impact on how people judge conservation. So it was interesting, I heard Craig talk about that he's going to do instrumentated homes, and I will share with you that when I was young, my father was an engineer, led the engineering team at American Standard. This was back in the 60s. And I was we're a family of 7. I had 4 brothers, there were 5 of us. So we were a test home. And there was instrumentation in my home. And I thought that was perfectly normal to switch out your heating system and your plumbing in your bathrooms every 6 months. I really assumed all kids did that, but it was unique to me. So it's interesting, you probably have all had this experience. You're passionate about what you do. This is your avocation and your career and your interest, and you want to change the world. And when you go home at night, you share with your family what went on that day. And I don't know, sometimes the reception you get is not the best or not the strongest. Sometimes your family doesn't really care. I have a son who's 17 now, so I'm going through all the fun of a teenage son. But when he was 8 years old and in the 3rd grade, I could tell he really wasn't all that intrigued. And as a dad, I wanted him to be proud of what I do and to really think that what I did as a career was interesting and fascinating. So one night at dinner, I was talking about what plumbing was like around the rest of the world, what it was like in Asia and Europe and the differences. And he said, "You know, Dad, my friends and I were talking about global plumbing today and what it means in the bathroom." And I thought, wow, this is what I've been waiting for. That's really great. He actually cares. He takes an interest in what I do. And he said, "Yeah, my friends and I, we decided that when you go into the bathroom, you're an American. And when you come out, you're an American. But while you're in there, European." So at this point, he's a junior in high school. He's looking to go into marine biology. So much for my wanting him to be intrigued with what I do, but that's okay. So we're going to talk about, as I say, the impact of performance and what it is to be a designer. So when I was growing up, I got fascinated with design. I told you that my dad worked in the engineering department at American Standard. He used to take me on Saturdays to work with him. He would work in his office in the morning, and I would run all around the corporate labs. Now, that was obviously a different time. That would not occur today. But back then, what I found was the interesting thing that was going on was the design department. So I would go hang out with the design department, and it influenced me, and here I am today. But I must tell you, the future didn't turn out like I expected. When I was growing up in the 60s, this is what I was promised. The future was going to be like the Jetsons, right? You've all seen the Jetsons. I had the honor of being around as they were first coming out. And the notion that we were going to have flying cars, and Rosie, of course, the robot maid, how great is that? And to me, I knew that in the near future, within my lifetime, we would live in closed systems. That's what I assumed this was, that you would have a building that maintained itself, created all its own energy, recycled all its products, and was a closed loop on water and waste. So here it is, 2010, another whole millennium. Where's my flying car? Where's my robot maid? So I want to talk about what is entailed in design and why it's actually critical to conservation and conservation to design, vice versa. Believe it or not, contrary to what you might think about all us designers, we actually look a lot at psychology and emotional reactions that people have. There's an awful lot of Jungian analysis that goes into design, and Jungian archetypes are critical. And you can imagine that gets pretty boring to glaze over and going through all that data, but we're just like you in that we're trying to get to the root cause of why people do what they do. And you can see here, when we look at a design, we're considering science and technology, we're considering economics, what does it cost? Will people actually step up and buy it? Socially and spiritually, why does it matter? And I'll talk about that in a bit. Political reasons, why are you picking the design or the product that you do from a political standpoint? And of course, the ecological impact. And all of this is overwritten by the boomers. There is no way to get around the boomers. They absolutely control and dictate where we're going, and they have my whole life. Now, I am a boomer, and I see that many of my boomer friends are in the audience today. For any of you who are not boomers, who are younger, there is good news. Not too far off, in your lifetime, the boomers will all be dead and gone, and you'll have some say-so in what products are designed and what choices you have in your life. But at the moment, they're still driving the train. Another really big aspect is a realization of what our world is like, the reality of what it really is and what we would like it to be. Now, part of my design team is in Guangzhou, China, and they'll come for a week or two at a time to visit me in Piscataway, New Jersey, where my design studio is. And it's always interesting to me, they will, during the day, want to take a cigarette break, because many of my associates in China do smoke. We've given that to their culture. But they go outside, and they spend most of the time on their break looking up at the sky. And when they come back in, they tell me, you know, Gray, we don't have a sky like this where we live. And it's so fascinating to come visit you and see that the sky is actually blue. And so that's another issue that we have. Have we just moved the pollution elsewhere in the world while we've tried to solve our own problems? And it's another thing that we have to consider. The single biggest thing that consumers say they want is time shift. They're stressed out. They would like to have more time in their life. If there was a way they could purchase more time, they would do it. And so much of what we do is about that actual thing of saving time. So I was talking about the boomers. They have a spiritual issue is an interesting thing. As boomers have grown up, they've sort of rejected what was the cultural, religious institutions and society that we had, and they've gone through much of their lives that way. They're now searching for what it's all about. I had my career, I had my family, I either succeeded or I didn't. Why was I here? What was the real purpose? And so boomers are spending their time exploring that. Boomers have seen a lot in their life. They were around for the moon landing and all witnessed it. And of course, that was 40 years ago, 40 plus years ago that occurred. Boomers, if you talk to boomers, they're tired of adopting new technologies. And we were just talking about new technologies. As we come up with smart controls and all sorts of new smart products, yes, we're all capable of learning to use them, but we've gone through so many technological cycles in our life. It's okay if we don't adopt another one. So that's another thing we've got to overcome when designing for boomers. And the other thing about boomers, and I was talking to some folks this morning, you know, back in the 60s, it was the whole revolutionary generation, and when we got in power, we were going to change the world. We were absolutely going to make it the place we wanted it to be. Now, we did change the world, but we spent the last 40 years, again, raising a family, pursuing careers, earning as much money as we possibly could. So here we are. The boomers are edging towards retirement, and they either had a successful career or they didn't. They have all the money. They're the single richest demographic group in history. And so it's interesting. The boomers are having to really look at themselves. Maybe this is the time that they're the group that needs to step up and make the changes that we were all talking about here today. But I'm afraid that's wishful thinking on my part, but gosh, we've got the time and we've got the money and we can do it.